Errol Spence is holding up the division, says Cody Crowley. He should be more like Manny Pacquiao. What's good, everybody? It's your boy, Cardinal Red Sports. Let's talk about it. Alright, so recently, Cody Crowley gave an interview and he was speaking about Errol Spence Jr. Now, the basis of the interview really was about Cody Crowley getting a shot. I think he believes that Errol Spence won't give him a shot, but they went into some other topics within the interview. Basically, Cody Crowley believes, and I think the guy who wrote the interview might be the same guy who wrote the article I was reading yesterday, because once again, he decided to attack Errol Spence's resume, which I find it crazy, man, that they want to go at Errol Spence's resume now. And the fights that he was calling out, once again, they were fights that were credible fights. But anyway, I don't want to start there. So Cody Crowley basically said that he feels that Errol Spence is holding up the division by getting into multiple car wrecks. I have to agree there. You would think that at some point Errol Spence has to be a little more careful about how he goes about his day-to-day. Now, I know we're all human and, things happen every day. A lot of stuff you can't control. But it seems like Errol Spence, he's a little reckless, trying to use the right word. He's a little bit reckless in his life. I know that last accident wasn't his fault, but you still have to be a little more cautious about your day-to-day and the moves that you're making in your everyday life when you're a sports figure. Whether it's getting somebody else to drive you, whether it's, not going out at certain times, you especially around fight time, you got to be a little more cautious with your day-to-day movements. And as well as that, Cody Crowley believes that Errol Spence is not giving the young fighters a shot. And it's crazy that he brought that up, because that was something that Errol Spence himself mentioned as a young fighter, that the older guys, the champions, were not giving him a shot. And it's, in boxing, I'm not sure if the fighters are to blame or the promoters are to blame, because we all know promoters and matchmakers make the fights, not the fighters. The fighters can request certain fights, but the fighters are not the ones putting the fights together. And whoever believes that a boxer can go into a room with a promoter and a TV exec and say, well, I want this fight next, and he's actually going to get it, you're completely wrong. With the exception of maybe Floyd Mayweather, because he was commanding such a high dollar and was getting so many views that he had a lot more control over his career and who he could decide who to fight next. Now, when you're talking about someone who's under the tutelage of a promoter, you don't really have a lot of say-so in who you're going to fight next. It's who's going to bring in them the most money. It's who's going to fill those venues up. It's who's going to get the most eyeballs on television. That's what the promoter and the television execs are looking for. They can care less about what the boxer's talking about. Unless the boxer agrees with them, then it's different. So, I would have to agree with Cody Crowley on that it's kind of a shame that these older fighters won't give these younger fighters the same shots that they were seeking as younger fighters, and then when you get to a level to where you should be seriously challenging yourself, and not only challenging yourself, but helping to prepare the next generation. You can't be selfish with this forever. It's only going to last a certain amount of time. And I think Errol Spence, I like Errol Spence. He's a very likable guy. He's a good boxer, man, and he deserves everything that he's done at this point. And it's crazy that, one fight that they keep pulling out and calling a soft touch is the Shawn Porter fight. He mentioned that in the last article. He mentioned that in this article. The guy who wrote it, once again, I'm not going to call his name out, but he said that Shawn Porter was a light touch because Shawn Porter had just gotten brutalized by Yordenis Ugas, which that is a fight that I watched. I think that was the first time I had ever seen Ugas, was Ugas versus Porter. And I actually think Ugas won that fight, to be honest with you. I think Porter did take a lot of damage in that fight, but I don't think Porter was so damaged that was the reason he lost to Errol Spence. I think Errol Spence is just a better fighter and has a lot more skills than Shawn Porter does. And I don't know why he keeps bringing that fight up as trying to imply that Errol Spence takes light touches and that Shawn Porter was a light touch. Shawn Porter was holding a title. How is that a light touch fight? And there were other names. I don't want to drag that part on too long, but there were other names that he mentioned that do not belong in the light touch category. Now, let's move on to something else I found interesting that Cody Crowley said. He said that Errol Spence is holding up the division, that he should be more like Manny Pacquiao. And that was a direct question from the interviewer to Cody Crowley. He said, do you feel like these young fighters or the champions of today should be more like Manny Pacquiao, a 44-year-old legend who just re-signed the contract to get back into the boxing ring and fight professionally? Even with that being said, Cody Crowley implied that the fact that Manny Pacquiao could go all the way up until 43 and challenge Yordenis Ugas for a title and beat Keith Thurman and still be willing to go at 44, 45 years of age is something that these young fighters should be aspiring to. We should be trying to evolve the sport of boxing. Here's the problem I think that boxing has, and a lot of sports have this problem. It's the fact that once you start getting money is, I won't say money is evil, but money is corrupting. Money can change your philosophy. Money can change your mind state. And once you start getting money, then you lose that willingness to be hungry. You lose the hunger, you lose the drive. And in a way, it changes everything about the sport, because you stop chasing greatness. You stop chasing wanting to evolve the sport. Like Michael Jordan evolved the sport of basketball. When Michael Jordan hit the league, a lot of players weren't doing it the way he was doing it. A lot of players were not going as hard as Jordan was going. The one thing that I think most of Jordan's opponents would say about Jordan and why he was so great, it had really nothing to do with his ability to shoot or dunk a basketball. It was Michael Jordan's drive. They said Michael Jordan would play so hard that they couldn't match his drive. They couldn't match his willpower. They couldn't match his heart and his desire to win. That's what made Michael Jordan great. That should translate over to other sports as well. In boxing, you should be striving to evolve the sport. Striving to go longer than the last champion did. Striving to be the 46-year-old boxing champion. If Manny Pacquiao can make it to 45, well, if I want to be great, I got to make it to 46, and I got to be a champion. That's evolution. That's evolving the sport. I know a lot of people think that in a sport like boxing, the older you get, the more chances you have to get hurt. I don't believe that, because I think if you made it that far in a sport like boxing and you're 40-something years old, you've learned the ability to work a ring and you have a real high ring IQ. Obviously, your defense and your offense is really good, or you wouldn't be still pursuing this sport at 40-something years of age. I think getting hurt or dying in the ring is the furthest thing for Manny Pacquiao's mind. And I think that he still sees that greatness out there, and that's something he's striving and still chasing. There's another level he feels like he can get to before he's truly done with the sport. And that is something that these young guys need to start striving for, man. It shouldn't just be, I need to get the highest dollar I can before I leave the sport. It should be, I need to leave the biggest mark on this sport, something unforgettable. Manny Pacquiao's name comes up so much because Manny Pacquiao did unforgettable things within the sport. Michael Jordan's name still comes up in the age of LeBron James, and rest in peace Kobe Bryant and Steph Curry, Durant, names like that. Michael Jordan's name is still the top of the mountain because Michael Jordan set the bar that high, and people want to chase Michael Jordan's bar. Nobody wants to chase David Evanzian's bar. And that takes nothing away from David Evanzian. He didn't set the bar high enough for people to want to chase what he accomplished. Still a good fighter, still a credible fighter, still a professional fighter, but you're not the highest of the mountaintop. And if these fighters don't start trying to achieve being the highest of the mountaintop, being the peak of the mountain, then you're going to see a lot of these fighters, not only their money start to dwindle, but their popularity start to dwindle as well. And I agree with Cody Crowley, and I thank him for making that statement, because it had to be said, man. These guys have to shoot for something more greater than a dollar amount in the sport, man. You should be striving to be legendary. Michael Jordan, Muhammad Ali, Mike Tyson, those are legendary names. And I want Errol, Terence, all those guys to be mentioned amongst those names, man. And you can't do it without challenging yourself. It's your boy Cardinal Red. Y'all let me know what y'all think about that down in the comment section below. Hit that like button for me. Share. Subscribe. Holla at me on all social media platforms: Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter. More than likely to get a response on the tube, so holla at me over there. And we are flying ahead.
965, no cruise control. Playing my own shit like dude is cold. A lot of niggas hustle then lose the dough. Be careful in the streets, you can lose your soul. Stay high, but I never use my nose. Live life like a blockbuster movie road. Niggas love me from Maine to Spain. I told y'all niggas I changed the game. It's Lucas Keys, back on that new shit. Dope like 8 balls you don't shoot pool with. Flow wet like I threw it in the pool with. No life jacket, still floating on some cool shit.
Night outside where the G's be pitching. Got weed, got crack, we be selling these bitches. I'm trying to get that guap, so I'm all the way with it. I ain't bullshitting with you, watch me handle my business.
Don't sleep, just eat, nigga.
Handle your business.
No teeth, go deep, mommy.
Handle